This past Friday, the MLB proposed a plan for a 154 game season that would pay the players their full 162 game salary, which is very important. But it would push back spring training arrival to March 22nd, and it pushed back first games to April 28th, excuse me. The plan also included expanded playoffs and the universal DH. By Monday, so just a few short days later, the Major League Baseball Players Association already declined the offer, saying that Commissioner Rob Manfred had too much power over canceling games due to COVID, despite the fact that the league gave the players probably what they wanted the most, which was that full 162 game salary, despite not playing that full year. Because of the decline, the season's still scheduled to begin with spring training February 17th. And an opening day on April 1st. So there's two sides to this. I'll start with you, Jack, here. Do you like this proposal from the league and their standpoint, or are you siding with the players who declined this proposal?
I'm a guy that almost always sides with the players, and I don't think I'm ready to make an exception here, but man, when I hear this proposal, I just hate the fact that we do not have a definite universal DH. It is just beyond me. No one wants to see pitchers hit. I love baseball so much, and I sympathize with fans that appreciate the strategy of pitchers and defensive substitutions, but let's just get the universal DH. It'll make the game so much more exciting, and a game that desperately needs young fans, that needs the attention of the media. And while there may have been other language around it that wasn't necessarily a hit for the players, it pains me as a fan to not have that guarantee.
And I was ready to talk about the negotiation of the amount of games, but while we're talking about the DH, I might as well mention I was against the designated hitter for a long time. I didn't want it in the American League either. I was a big fan of. I love the strategy. I love defensive double switches.
Sure.
I love pinch hitters. Seeing Bartolo Colon hit a home run a few years ago was an incredible moment. I'll tell my children about. But I do understand that. The use of a universal DH is incredibly important for the expansion of the game and getting people back interested in baseball again. And I'll tell you, just watching the first game this season with universal DH, Giancarlo Stanton hitting a home run in Nationals Park when he wouldn't have even played in the game had it not been for the universal DH, kind of set it in my mind that was like, oh, I get it. I understand it. I'm with it. But in terms of the actual the full deal that the Players Association declined, I found it odd at first. I was like, why would they decline this? This seems like a pretty sweet deal for them. But I guess at the end of the day, I'm hopeful that what they wanted was, we want to play a full season, no matter what we're getting paid. And to be honest, I took that as a great sign of encouragement of like, wow, the players want to play a full 162 game season. And it excited me. It got me much more excited for this season, no matter when an agreement is made.
Yeah, I mean, I just want to talk. Obviously, I'll touch on the DH as well now that you guys brought it up, and then also the expanded playoffs too, which is another part of this as well. The DH I do like too. I think watching pitchers hit is not fun for anyone. And although we do get great moments like Bartolo Colon, we also get pretty bad moments just about every game when they strike out and certainly never get a hit. So that's something that I think definitely benefits the game as a whole. There is still a little bit of strategy that can be used, obviously, certainly not as much. But that strategy, I think, still comes out in big playoff games. You'll see defensive switches and you'll see all that kind of stuff. So I do like the universal DH. The expanded playoffs, I was a little shaky on at first, just because I felt like teams that, especially in a whole 162 game season, teams like the Dodgers from 2020, if they were to play a full year, really just dominated and probably would have won the division by quite a lot of games, even in a pretty good division. And the fact that they still have to play a 3-game series come playoff time, I didn't like that. I felt like it wasn't fair to them. Just putting them in that situation where it makes almost the season kind of useless, because then you still have to play a 3-game set just like every other team. So if they do the expanded playoffs, I think it's really important that they set up some sort of bye for that first place team, for that best record, kind of like what the NFL did. They did the expanded playoffs and they did that first round bye. I think that worked pretty well for them. The expanded playoffs as a whole, I think, are pretty exciting. I really enjoyed watching Wild Card Weekend, which was obviously expanded in advance this season. I really enjoyed watching that as a baseball fan. So I think that's a good thing. But I think it's important to just kind of reward these really good teams, these number one seeds that certainly play through a long season of 162 games and deserve to not play in that short little 3-game series and risk getting bounced early from the playoffs after spending a whole year basically on top.
Do you guys remember those Pirates teams that would win like 100+ games and then subsequently lose the wild card game? And it's like, well, we just won 100 games and it happened back-to-back years. And you just feel so bad for them, and I feel like we're at a point now where the MLB has already kind of got their foot in the door with the expanded playoffs. And it's really tough to just walk away from that now that they have that power. And it's really tough to adequately create a playoff format that works for every team when any bad team can beat any good team any given baseball. That's what I love about baseball, because you see teams like the Detroit Tigers beating the Dodgers. You don't see that so often in football and even basketball, but that can happen in any baseball game.
And, much like the DH, actually, I was a little against any kind of expanded playoffs at first. I liked the 10-team format. And then when they were talking about expanding it full time, I was like, "What? Are we just gonna have the whole league play in the playoffs? What's the point of a regular season in the first place?" But Wild Card Weekend in baseball this past season, much like the DH this past season, kind of just altered my perspective on this. Anything that can bring that extra entertainment factor to the game, purists won't like to hear it, including my former self. But it's great for the game. It's still baseball. I think the argument for a lot of purists they won't like watching a 100-win team lose the first round of the playoffs, but it's still baseball. You're still playing 9 innings, even if it's best of 3 series against a 20-win team. It's still baseball. You still have to play a baseball game, and you have to win a baseball game. So that is my new thinking about it. So whatever the new playoff format is, I'm for it.
Yeah, I mean, Jack, I think you brought up a good point. Once MLB gets their foot in the door here and starts like testing the waters and doing this expanded playoffs, I think deep down a lot of fans were thinking this is not just a 1-year thing. This is something that they're obviously very forward in thinking about, and they really like it. So that's why they tried it out in the 60-game season. And that's why they want to bring it back here. So it makes a lot of sense. And now that because I was against the playoffs too, the expanded playoffs, but now that I've seen it, I want it again as a fan. So I think that's what they kind of expected, and that's what they thought would happen, which seems to be the case in general among MLB fans. Obviously, the players are in a much different situation here. Unfortunately, I think with the players and the Players Association and this discussion and these negotiations, it just comes down to kind of mistrust, and that's just the bottom line. Like, no one seems to really trust each other. The Players Association just seems to be finding whatever little thing might be wrong with this proposal that they can and say, this is how they're using this plan to get back at us or do what they can to make more money or whatever it may be. And sure, that might be the case, but if you look at the plan as a whole, you're playing less games, you're getting paid to play 162. That seems like a pretty good deal. The universal DH, if you're a really good hitter and struggle in the field, that's an awesome thing, because now as a free agent, I can sign in the National League, and that benefits me as well. You look at a guy like Nelson Cruz, he just re-signed with the Twins, and I think that deal happened mostly because this universal DH was not approved, and he could have went somewhere else, maybe even for more money if the universal DH was approved. So my whole point is that from the player's standpoint, I just find, I normally like to side with them, but I find trouble seeing the logic in this. I think they're just kind of nitpicking this plan and looking for whatever ways they can say, well, I don't trust Rob Manfred doing this, and I don't trust the owners because they're just out for money. I don't know. For me, that's just how I look at the mindset of the players in this situation, which I think is a really bad thing because overall the plan is after safety. It's after player safety. I think pushing back the seasons, especially spring training sites like Arizona and Florida, it'll help. Maybe their COVID cases will go down as the weather gets warmer, as we get more into the summer here. So that's something to think about. And I think the bottom line with this plan is you're getting paid for 162. And it's just the biggest thing is the health and safety of the players, and pushing the season back at least a little bit, I got to think is going to help with that at least a little.
Yeah. And if anything, this, negotiation process just shows how fractured the relationship is between the league and the Players Association. And it just makes me sad at a time where the game desperately needs unity to become a household sport. It needs to be more than just America's pastime. I want to watch games on ESPN on Friday nights and be excited about that.
Baseball's got a lot of problems right now, and they really can't afford it to have any of them. Some of them are more socially influenced, if you catch my drift. But this is one that can be solved really quickly. I think for the good of the game, the Major League Baseball is going to have to listen to the players more, and the players are going to have to shrug a little bit and listen to the owners more. It is the only way that the sport will continue to survive in the way that we know it, that we were raised on it, that our parents were raised on it, that we would like to raise our children on, I'm sure. So that is the least baseball can do to put themselves back in the national spotlight that football always had with them, that I think basketball has really taken from them, especially in the last 2 decades. So for me, that's the most important thing baseball can do, not just in general, but really right now.